Good Friday evening to you. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Thanks for joining us here on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. NFL Draft a little bit about a week over, and still looking back at what the Browns did. And the Browns appear to have addressed several of the needs that they had. Among them, a good young third wide receiver behind Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, the 1 and 2, both coming off of injury, of course. And in the 6th round, they went with the University of Michigan product, Donovan Peoples-Jones. And Peoples-Jones was projected to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. Browns got him in the 7th round of the draft. Big physical frame, and he's imposing. He has good job of using leverage and routes, clever footwork, quickness getting in and out of breaks. Here's something that Kevin Stefanski has to like in the scouting report. Size to help spring runs as a slot blocker. Now, a couple of the things that are challenges: release lacks twitch and suddenness, meaning tight man coverage. He cannot really extend the open windows and get things done when he is covered tight man-to-man, which he's going to see a lot of in the pro game, of course. Also, a very good return man. All good things for the Browns. Donovan Peoples-Jones out of Michigan. Let's welcome in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com. And Ellis, when you found out it was Donovan Peoples-Jones, the young wide receiver that the Browns went and got, just a reaction, and some of the things you've seen on film. I know you've done film room breakdown on him as well.
Yeah, the curious case of Donovan Peoples-Jones. There's a lot to unpack here. So people probably saw the other day Urban Meyer, former Ohio State coach, comes out and says that he was surprised Donovan Peoples-Jones wasn't a top 10 pick, that he recruited him out of high school. Young man out of Detroit, 5-star prospect, goes to Michigan, has a 3-year career, and quite frankly underwhelms. His freshman year, 22 catches, 200, 300 yards, something like that. Has a decent sophomore year, 47 catches, I think it was, upwards of 700 yards. Got in the end zone 6-7 times, something like that. Then his junior year, he falls off a little bit and has like a season in between that freshman and sophomore season. Of course, you would have liked him to see the jump. So when the Browns make that pick, I'm hearing what Urban Meyer's saying. I remember reading about him, and Pro Football Focus didn't have him ranked as a wide receiver, but have him as a 5th round pick. He goes in the 6th round, and really the book on him is someone who hasn't lived up to expectations. I talked to MLive's Aaron McMahon the other day to unpack that a little more, like what went wrong. Like, I don't want to just hear he didn't live up to expectations. Let's figure out why. And sounds like there's a lot of blame to go around. Michigan's offense, as many in Ohio, Cleveland area know, has not been able to live up to the hype. With Harbaugh there, it just hasn't been the passing offense that they thought it could be, so they reinvented a few times while Peoples-Jones is there. And he sort of got phased out of the offense. Now, it didn't help from Aaron telling me that Peoples-Jones sometimes would get disgruntled and disappointed in his performance and kind of just disappear from games. That's common for a young kid. I don't think that's something we should judge him for at the next level. But on paper, and when you look at him, he's a specimen. 6'2", 212, runs 4.4 40, had the highest vertical in the draft. So with 44 and a half inches, I got to share that. I mean, he just jumps out of the gym and we're playing on a football field. He's going to go up and climb these cornerbacks for balls. So again, a lot to unpack with Peoples-Jones, and it's going to come down to him getting a fast start in the league, because he's got to knock this and curb this trend he's on of underperforming. And when training camp gets going, he's going to have to get out to a good start. But if he does, I believe he can compete for that number 3 receiver spot.
The other thing you have to like about it, a guy that big, if you put him in the slot, he's going to be a pretty good blocker. I mean, he has the size, and that was one of the things that you saw about his scouting report. He can be an effective blocker out of the slot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. Someone with his size also is going to have the opportunity to make a name for themselves on special teams. When we look at him as a special teams player, of course, the return skills come up. He was an all Big Ten third-team return man last year, and he's like 700 yards in his career, 5 touchdowns. He'll have a chance to be that returner in Cleveland. I believe special teams coordinator Mike Prefer may have found his guy both in the punt return game, and we'll see what he can do in the kick return game. But he's also going to have a chance to be a punt team guy, a gunner, a kickoff guy, running down there, making plays. That's how he's going to have to make a name for himself as a 6th-round pick. So to bring it back to how you started this question with him blocking in the slot there, he's going to be able to get on smaller cornerbacks and be gritty in a 2 wide receiver set if need be when Kevin Stefanski's trying to run those outside zone. He's going to be able to get on his blocks, but also that grit is going to help him on special teams, where I think is where he's going to have to make a name for himself to start.
He came out and said he was going to wear number 11 with the Browns because he's one of one. What about having guys like Jarvis Landry and OBJ to learn from? That's got to, I would think, as a guy that's underperformed, if I'm Donovan Peoples-Jones, I'm putting my locker right between those two guys and basically finding everything they do and doing what they do.
Yeah, and Odell even tweeted at Peoples-Jones shortly after he was drafted. Not a whole lot of context in the tweet, but just an acknowledgement of respect and excitement that he was coming to Cleveland. And I like your point about putting the locker right next to him. That always makes a lot of sense. And who knows where his locker will be in the facility, but just being on their hip is something I assume he'll be able to do and do often. He's learning from two of the better route runners when they choose to be in the game, but quite frankly, two of the most professional receivers in the NFL. Say what you want to about the hype of the Browns last year and the celebrity that Odell Beckham Jr. brings wherever he goes. These two are pure professionals. They play through the pain. They work day in and day out about their craft, catching the football, getting open. These are two guys that any young receiver would want as a mentor, and now Peoples-Jones is going to have that opportunity in Cleveland.
Now, after the draft, Browns make some news. A little bit of a surprise. Rashard Higgins signs back with the Browns. Keep in mind, before he got into Freddie Kitchens' doghouse, this was a guy that was basically Baker Mayfield's security blanket. And you know, his last catch was a touchdown catch. The Browns didn't have a whole lot of those last year.
Yeah, that was surprising. Not that he's back in Cleveland necessarily, but just how long it all took. And as it got closer to really this mini camp, training camp period that we're in limbo in, it became pretty clear that there wasn't going to be much of a market for Rashard Higgins. Now, cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot reported that, you know, Higgins turned down more money to go elsewhere, and I believe all those things, but he picked a pretty bad year to get in the doghouse and not perform, considering where he is in his rookie contract, obviously looking for that new contract. He didn't come to play in a contract year. And then the NFL draft, the 2020 class, one of the deepest and possibly could be one of the more historic classes in recent draft history. That's just bad timing for Rashard Higgins. So you figured the number was going to be low. It was a surprise that it came from Cleveland. But as you mentioned earlier, these two number one receivers in Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry are coming off injury. There's no guarantee there, though. Everyone expects them to be healthy. I'll say it again, no guarantee. This is football, of course. And after that, it gets pretty thin with Donovan Peoples-Jones, who we just got done talking about. So Rashard Higgins is in a spot to compete for that number 3 spot. And essentially, if you're the fourth receiver on a team like this, though you may not be involved in the offense a whole lot, you're going to have opportunities to see the field because it's just a thin position in general for the Browns.
We'll wrap up this segment. Do you think the Browns did a decent enough job of addressing those receivers behind Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry? As you went into the draft, that had to be a concern. There was no Higgins, there was no Peoples-Jones, and now, you know, you look at the top 4, and there's still others that are going to compete, but do you feel pretty good about the depth of the wide receiving class, at least now, for the Browns?
Yeah, if you would have asked me before the draft, I would have said no. And if you would have asked me before the Higgins move, I would have said there's probably got to be one more thing coming, or they believe in a guy like Kendall Hodges or something. Because the way I see the Higgins signing is a lot like how Andrew Berry handled free agency before the draft. He was aggressive there, made his plays, and then protected himself a bit in the draft where there wasn't much emphasis and urgency in the draft to land these players because you took care of yourself in free agency. Now he just went the other way with it. He had the draft and then addressed a position of need in free agency after the draft by landing Higgins. So I think that room's set, and there's a lot of talent in it. I don't want to necessarily call it top heavy, but it's just an overall complete group, and I think that the pieces complement each other well.
Ellis Williams, we appreciate the insight on the wide receivers. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll go back to Ellis Williams, and we're talking tight ends, an important piece to Kevin Stefanski's draft class and his offense, and they added to it in the draft class with Harrison Bryant. More sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to give a little perspective to the Browns draft class. Talked a little bit about Donovan Peoples-Jones and how that affects the wide receivers and the offense lining up a little bit further inside, for the most part, the tight ends. Now, they signed Austin Hooper in free agency. They also have David Njoku as a tight end. And then the Browns went out and selected a tight end in the best tight end in college football past year, Harrison Bryant from Florida Atlantic. Got him in the 4th round. The comp that they have on his NFL scouting thing is the George Kittle. We would take that in a heartbeat as Browns fans. Basketball fluidity and movement around the field, some of his strengths. Held his own against cornerbacks when he split out wide. Bursts into routes, sidestepping traffic, staying on schedule. Highly instinctive in space. Also tenacious but technically savvy as a run blocker and a pass blocker. So he's a really good blocker. That is important in Kevin Stefanski's offense as well. And the thing about Bryant to remember is he did not play tight end in high school until his senior year. He was a tackle. So they switched him out his senior year in high school. He caught 10 touchdown passes. Some weaknesses, his bench press and speed numbers are not great. But again, this is a complete tight end that the Browns selected, and again, won the Mackey Award as best tight end in college football. Let's head back and welcome in Ellis Williams to put a little bit of this in perspective. Ellis, when you look at Bryant, what do you see?
Bryant's an interesting prospect. To pull Donovan Peoples-Jones back into this, Peoples-Jones is a guy who had the hype coming out of high school and doesn't live up to it in college, and needs to, work on his route running and the second level. He can get off the line well. Now you look at a guy like Harrison Bryant, he's someone who peaks later, as you just said, playing tackle in high school and then goes to college. Didn't weigh anything and still needs to put weight on at the next level, quite frankly. But he peaks as you'd like to see a prospect grow throughout his college career and saves his best for last. An unanimous All-American, as you said, best tight end in college football. And this young man just knows how to get open. He wins at the line of scrimmage, much like Donovan Peoples-Jones. And he's also going to be able to go and get some footballs like Donovan Peoples-Jones. Where he's a better route runner than Peoples-Jones is intermediate. He can cut well at the top of routes. And not that Peoples-Jones can't. I just worry about his separation with cornerbacks in the NFL compared to the type of safeties and potentially linebackers Harrison Bryant's going to get. And I think this is telling that I'm talking a lot about Harrison Bryant as a receiver and comparing him to another receiver rather than a tight end, because at Florida Atlantic, they split him all over the formation. He was out wide a lot against Ohio State. You watch some of his other tape. He's inside more as a fullback, H-back type of guy. And then he's a traditional Y and can marry in a two tight end set also. So there's a lot that he can do and that Kevin Stefanski will potentially ask him to do eventually, depending on how this room shakes out. But he isn't a guy that's going to come in and be the focal point of the offense like he was at FAU. He doesn't need to do that, which is why he'll likely succeed. He knows what it's like to have everyone staring at him and have the attention. Now he can take advantage of one-on-one matchups and potentially just wide open, schemed up situations. And the one place I got to push back on that he's ready to be an NFL tight end is his size. He's a 240. He looks more like 235 on tape. Austin Hooper is 255. The Zach Ertz's of the world, 250. George Kittle, 250. Kelsey, 260. He's got to put a little more weight on to use that lineman background he has to actually move some NFL defensive linemen. I'm assuming he'll do that in time. But right now as a rookie, depending on if he can get on the field, Kevin Stefanski's got a smart, intelligent, young football player who's going to know how to get open, and he'll have opportunities to do so, assuming he's on the field, because he's just a natural football player.
You know, what you've described would be a guy that's a tough matchup for defenses, which is what you're really looking for throughout the. I mean, that's what Kareem Hunt is. You can use him in the fullback slot. You can motion him out. You can split him out wide. That sounds kind of like the versatility that Bryant has. Is that kind of what you're getting at and what you've seen?
Yeah, that's exactly what I see. And a guy like Kevin Stefanski is also well aware of his limitations as a blocker. And not only is he aware of that, he's aware of what a tight end that can't block signals to a defense. When a defense sees that, they think pass. So you could even be in a heavy formation, but if you see Harrison Bryant out there, you're not buying the run because the young man isn't going to be a good run blocker yet. But what Kevin Stefanski can do is potentially put him in an up-back, H-back type of formation, and he can motion him and use him as an angle blocker, and he's just going to have to work and scheme up better ways to have him have advantageous blocking situations rather than just hat-on-hat type schemes. So that's one way to overlook his deficiency as a blocker right now and keep him as just an overall versatile player that can line up anywhere. I don't know if he's ready to be split out wide against NFL corners either, but it's something he's capable of. And as this young man learns more and more about the NFL game, continuing his trajectory that he had in college as the best tight end in football. And for him to be FAU's, I just want to say this quick, FAU's first unanimous All-American, Devin Singletary played there at the Buffalo Bills. And Singletary, I think it was like in 2016 or 17, led all of college football in touchdowns, scored and points. Not like usually kickers do that. He had 198 points, and he wasn't even an unanimous All-American. So that says a lot about the type of player Bryant is and what he accomplished in his college career. And you like to see that when you're evaluating talent. And if you're going off the pedigree and the lower expectations, Bryant's going to be a guy that's going to be able to take advantage of the spots that Kevin Stefanski puts him in.
The other thing that you mentioned there is he obviously needs to put on some weight. Given the fact that he did play tackle in high school, putting on weight and muscle mass when you get into an NFL facility, I'd much rather have that than have to teach the guy how to run block. This guy's going to know how to run block. It's just going to be a matter of, Harrison, we're going to lock you in the weight room for 6 or 7 months, and when you get 15 pounds on, come see us, and you're going to find the football. Is that accurate to think that way?
Yeah, I really, a lot of truth there, because think of a guy like Ben Bartch, who was the D3 offensive tackle from St. John's, Minnesota school. His story, the whole combine, and they even did a segment on it during the NFL combine in Indianapolis, was he just put on the weight to play tackle and to make it to the NFL. He had these giant smoothies and these shakes and 6 eggs in them and all this crap, and he put on 50, 60 pounds, something like that. So to me, yes, putting on the weight, look, everyone's body's different, but putting on the weight is what these NFL facilities are for and what these trainers are paid the big money for. What you can't teach is just the natural instincts and feel that a tackle has, and the mindset to play tackle. He clearly has that in him. And when you do watch his tape, when he does get on someone, when he gets an advantage on an angle or kind of gets his shoulder up on somebody, he drives them and he finishes his block. So he's got that natural grit and that want to block. Like you said, the weight's the only thing missing, and I don't think it's going to take that long for him to get that weight. This is going to be one of the more interesting prospects to watch throughout his time in Cleveland.
Let me ask you this. If he had another 15 pounds, do you think there's any way that he is available in the 4th round, or is he likely the top is the size the reason he was, the 4th round pick? If my guess is if he had 15, 20 pounds on him, he's probably a late 1st round pick.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. The tight end class was tricky this year. I think he was like the 6th tight end taken or something. Green Bay took a young man out of Cincinnati who's more of a fullback, and I guess we're just going to call him Kyle Juszczyk of the NFC now. But so, yes, if there was a way for him to be the definitive number 1 tight end by looking the part more rather than just kind of a skinny, split-out wide receiver, quite frankly, yes, he likely climbs up this board. But I think it's a testament to Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry's scouting department that they were able to see what this kid did really well, look past the weight, assume they can take care of that, and just find a smart football player that's going to do what he's asked, and then be able to make plays with the balls in his hand. This young man caught 65 balls, 1,000 yards, and was the focal point of the offense. He's got some George Kittle comp with the ball in his hands. He doesn't have the 40 time. Kittle was like 4.55, and I think he's 4.74, so he doesn't have the breakaway speed. But his 10-yard splits are nice. He was 86th percentile there. So this young man can win in space and make some plays with the ball in his hand. So kudos to the Browns for overlooking the weight, overlooking what he couldn't do, realizing what he can do, and potentially finding a steal where they did.
Yeah, and to dovetail off of that, if the Browns are able to identify guys that fit into their system like that, that's what this franchise has been lacking since it came back, quite frankly, in 1999. Let me ask you this. Where do you think the depth chart at tight end becomes middle to end of this season? Hooper's going to be 1. Who do you think ends up as the 2nd tight end, in the middle to the end of this year?
It's a tricky situation to figure out. My gut tells me David Njoku's going to get the first crack at it. Now, if you're asking me how this ends, that's even more difficult because David Njoku was a 1st-round pick for a reason. Maybe the Browns shouldn't have moved up and grabbed him there, but he wasn't going to make it much longer on day 2. We know the athlete he is. If he can catch the football and play within that system, the sky's the limit for David Njoku. That's always been the book on him. So if he gets first crack at it and picks up a few critical 3rd downs in week 1 and week 2, gets in the end zone and is just reliable, he's going to hold on to that job until injury or someone else loses it. And I think Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are fine with a scenario like that. They'd rather groom the Harrison Bryant and Steven Carlsons of the world. But as soon as those drops start creeping back in from Njoku, not saying they will, but if they do, Stefanski knows he's got 2 young tight ends in Carlson and Bryant ready to step up. And that battle for the number 3 tight end spot between Carlson and Bryant is going to be one of the more intriguing things to watch come training camp.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Ellis will join us and we'll flip sides of the ball. We'll talk some defense. The Browns address some things, but still some questions ahead. We'll examine the defense of the Browns when more sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition returns. Stay with us right here on cleveland.com.
Celebrate NatureStone's 30-year anniversary with a free NatureStone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making NatureStone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's NatureStone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking about the Browns, kind of analyzing the roster as it sits now after the draft, before training camp or mini camp, whatever any of that looks like this year because of the pandemic going on. Well, the Browns did address the defense somewhat in the draft and in the middle rounds. When you look at this defense, I really like the defensive line. They have the ability to be a dominant group. The linebackers, they really scare me. Now the safeties, they address signing Carl Joseph. Delpit I like as well. And they have the cornerbacks in Greedy Williams along with Denzel Ward. Two young guys that, quite frankly, have been inconsistent, but high draft picks that have talent without question. The question is, can they stay on the field and be productive NFL players? Let's welcome back Ellis Williams. And Ellis, this linebacking core, I know they took one that's kind of a developmental guy. It still is an area that concerns me. When you look at this linebacking core, what do you see, and what needs to happen for them to be at least a good to average NFL defense in that linebacking core?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you label Jacob Phillips' selection as developmental, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And in fact, I think there was a method of the madness behind Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski coming out before the draft and saying, we don't expect these guys to contribute right away, a natural way to lower expectations. But given the situation in that room that you just laid out, there's going to be opportunity galore for one of these young guys to make a name for themselves. I mean, just last year at 21 years old, 22 years old, Mack Wilson came in, started 14 games, had a memorable interception, looked lost at times, but again, he's 22. Now you got Phillips coming in, played opposite Patrick Queen. For all the draft picks PFF loved of the Browns, of 3 top 25 selections in Wills, Delpit, and Elliott, they weren't so high on the Phillips selection. I think he was like number 187 on their board. But nonetheless, the Browns go get him with one of their higher picks. And I can see why, again, running opposite Patrick Queen, who got all the hype and well-deserving, goes to the Baltimore Ravens in the first round. Well, Phillips actually led the team in tackles. And tackles can be a kind of a misleading stat, especially now as we get more information, analytics, that whole game. But still, you like to see at least how much he's involved in around the football. What I'm trying to say is, though this room is thin and the Browns don't expect rookies to contribute, especially later round rookies, he's going to have an opportunity to. Taki had every chance last year for the most part, and it didn't seem that he could get on the field. Maybe that changes. Maybe a great summer changes that. B.J. Goodson's a guy they're probably going to rely on right away. He's the only older person in the room, if you will, and he's 26 years old. It's a young and inexperienced group that has a ton of opportunity, and though Phillips may not be ready, much like Mack Wilson last year, he may just get thrown into it, and the defense is fine with that, as you alluded to. They're built up front to win and to cover on the back end. This linebacker crew is going to be a work in progress, and clearly Joe Woods and the Browns defense are fine with that right now. What
do you think the Browns got in Goodson? You mentioned him. He's the free agent that they signed that has played in the NFL, played with the Packers. Who is he? What type of player is he?
Yeah, he's a downhill run stopper. He gets in, he gets gritty, he gets nasty towards the line of scrimmage. Good instincts when it's run. Now, you put him in tough situations, play action, he just shouldn't be on the field on third down regardless. That's where he really struggles. And that's what you worry about in the NFL now, especially let's look at this AFC North. You got to draft to win your division, right? Well, the Baltimore Ravens, you don't know if it's run or pass on first, second, or third down with that team. So, yes, they led the league in rushing attempts and yards, and you think a guy like B.J. Goodson helps in that scenario. just go turn on the Green Bay Packer versus San Francisco 49er tape. I don't care which game you do it at, but let's look at the NFC Championship. Kyle Shanahan would come out in heavy personnel. He'd have, 3, 4 people in the backfield, and by the snap, he's in an empty backfield, and B.J. Goodson's out there trying to cover Matt Breida or Kyle Juszczyk or something, and it just was the mismatch, and we all remember the slaughter that was. So I worry about Goodson when you get look, there's only one Kyle Shanahan. There's probably only 4 or 5 schemers and play callers like him. So there might not be too much worry there, but at his best, when everything's on the line, I don't know if B.J. Goodson's a guy that you can be out there, but is he serviceable? Can he stop the run? Can he be in there on early downs and be trusted? Of course, and I think he'll win that middle linebacking job to start just because, again, with him being the veteran in the room, he's going to be that presence while some of these younger guys learn the ropes.
What about the line? From all indications, defensive line looks really strong. How good can it be, and how much of a problem can it be for opponents?
Yeah, the Browns' defensive line is real interesting. Really, they're gaining players that were on the team last year but just faded towards the end. Of course, we understand the Myles Garrett incident. Olivier Vernon battled that knee injury and could never really get back. He tried at the end in Week 17. It didn't matter. He wasn't the same. Those 2 players right there, let's just remember who they were at the start of the year. The Browns had one of the better front sevens in the league, and for good reason. And then for anyone who thought Myles Garrett wasn't this game-changing player, the defense was night and day after he left. So his importance was just proven last year, and I think we can put that to bed. And one name people aren't talking enough about is Adrian Claiborne, who they signed from the Atlanta Falcons. He's a veteran. He's going to come in and have an opportunity to spell guys like Vernon and Garrett. And this man had 6 sacks in one game before. I know it was 3-4 years ago, setting the Atlanta Falcons record. But when you flash like that, and when you're a consistent veteran, the name of the game is longevity, and you've proven your worth. He's not going to come in here and be asked to carry the defensive line, but he's going to come in and spell. Andrew Berry said he wants his front to be like a hockey team. So for me in Minnesota, I hear that. And these guys are just going to roll in and out. And one more guy I have to mention is Jordan Elliott. This young man had some first-round grades, depending where you look, and some questionable. I'm actually talking with a Mizzou beat writer later today to learn more about this young man. But just watching him on tape, I'll leave the off-the-field stuff where it's at. He's a fiery young man. He's quick in space, and he's going to win potentially a guy who can succeed Sheldon Richardson someday. Both Mizzou guys also, so I'm sure Sheldon's happy to take one guy like that under his wing. It's an interesting front seven, and honestly, could be one of the stronger ones in the AFC once we get rolling here.
Let's shift back to the back half of it. Let's start with the corners. Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, both first-round picks, or Denzel a high first-round pick, Greedy pretty high in the second round. They've been inconsistent. Is there any other way to do it? And I think you see the potential there, but there's also some things that would have to concern you if you're relying on them as your shutdown corner.
Yeah, that's really going to be the one mystery box of the defense, because when we're doing these segments and we can talk, or you can look at the Browns on paper or turn on Madden 20 and soon to be Madden 21, you see these names, you recognize them, you're comfortable with them because of who they were. But we need to start talking about who they are, and it's exactly what you said. We've seen some inconsistency. Denzel Ward comes in and makes a Pro Bowl as a rookie and then battles injury, and his most memorable play last year might be Cortland Sutton climbing him in Denver for that amazing touchdown. And that's no knock. Denzel's a smaller corner anyway, and Sutton is making a name for himself as one of the better receivers in the league. But when you're the number 4 pick overall, you want to come out of that situation better. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about the play, I remember the Browns saying he could have had an interception there, and he didn't play the ball well. So it's amazing how that one moment can change. He dropped that pick in the end zone against Tom Brady. So if he makes 2 plays like that, all of a sudden we're probably talking about Denzel Ward a little differently. But again, it goes to the inconsistencies. And Greedy Williams is much of the same. Proved himself a little more as a tackler, but those injuries early in the year, this team just needs to have a clean start. And I know that's hard for Browns fans to hear, just winning week 1, but be healthy in training camp, start out fine, and that confidence in that young group in the back should solidify itself. But, some injuries, some nicks, if the secondary has to shuffle around and we start seeing what happened last year formulate this year, it's going to be a group we have question marks about all season.
Last thing I'll ask you as we wrap it up on the defensive side of the ball, The safeties, young safeties, they signed Joseph. I know Zendaya was a little bit older. Delpit they take, and they get him probably a little later than most thought. Do you think they've kind of strengthened the middle of the field on the back half with what they've done? And the guy I really like, I like Joseph. He's a guy that will come up and hit in the box as well. Safeties and how you think they've strengthened that position.
Yeah, safety is, again, much like the tight end group, an interesting position to follow. I don't see, so you just said it right, Joseph, Sendejo, but then Delpit. I don't see how you keep Delpit off the field this year. This young man's just too crafty, and his instincts are too on point to not be on the field as an asset. So I could see those three not just rotating, but really just being on the field at the same time in some sub-packaging. Now, like you said, does that mean Joseph comes down and is more of your slot corner, you let Delpit play back, or do they flip spots? They're both capable and more than capable. Sendejo's another guy who's better around the line of scrimmage, so that might naturally just put Delpit in that natural free safety spot. But all three are capable of playing that slot corner. Even Sendejo last year got assigned Michael Thomas versus the Saints in that Vikings playoff game and did his part. By no means can Michael Thomas be shut down by anybody, but he was serviceable, and the Vikings got a win there. So they've got three really just aggressive, nasty safeties that aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. It'll be interesting who they play at free, because now it'll disperse who they play closer to the line of scrimmage. But I could see all three of these guys being on the field, and that's a way to take a linebacker that we just got done talking about, an inexperienced group. Take one of those guys off the field and let those three guys patrol the middle and let them just grow as a group. And Delpit seems to be the future at the position, so I don't see how you keep him off the field that long.
Ellis Williams, as always, we appreciate the insight, breaking down the Browns in this segment, the defensive side of the ball. Appreciate it, Ellis. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Been talking Browns. Do you miss the voice of Tom Hamilton with calls? We got a little bit for you coming up. We'll hear as the Indians take on the Giants. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back with some baseball from Progressive Field. Stay with us.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week, and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Time to shift gears a little bit and move towards baseball. For the first time since back in 1883, there was no April baseball in our country. That's kind of hard to believe. But for Indians fans longing to hear the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the sound of Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhause's voice, we've got you covered. The 2020 season simulated on the show during the lockdown.
Hi everyone, Jim Rosenhaus back with you from Tropicana Field in St. Pete. The Indians sim game recap from a Wednesday afternoon getaway day in St. Pete. Final day of the road trip. Trying to make it 2 straight over the Rays after snapping that 5-game losing skid yesterday, bringing an 18-14 mark into today's game right near the top of the American League Central Division. And the challenge this afternoon, it's Aaron Savali for the Tribe against that guy right there, Charlie Morton, as he has really been a mainstay in that Rays rotation since joining Tampa Bay a year ago. And he's struggling somewhat at the outset this season. You see the numbers up a little bit in terms of ERA, but certainly the stuff as good as it gets in baseball. Well, the Indians jumped him early, a 5-run first inning, keyed in large part by this.
Now the payoff. Swung on and a rocket to left. Down the line she goes, way out of here.
The Indians would tack on 2 more, and they had a 7-1 lead in the bottom half of the 4th inning. Aaron Savali on the mound, and he got some help from his defense. Then later on, with the Rays trying to mount a comeback, Perez struck again with his 2nd home run in the game.
The pitch swung on, whacked to deep left. It's gone. Roberto Perez on a line drive blast to left.
And from there, it was all Tribe as they put it in the capable hands of their closer, Brad Hand, at the end.
Hand is ready. To the pitch. Swing and a miss. Fastball. Ball game. 95-mile-an-hour heater. And the Indians win the finale.
Oh, Hand continues to be outstanding, leading the American League in saves as he got it done in St. Pete on Wednesday. And the Indians, winners, take the series from the Rays and head home. It'll be a happy flight back to Cleveland, a happy simulated flight back to Cleveland for the Tribe. Adam Plutko with the win in relief today. He's done a nice job out of that bullpen for the Tribe. And good relief at the end, too, by Brad Hand once again as the Indians come up 8-5 winners in St. Pete against the Rays. And there you see our player of the game. It is Roberto Perez with the 2 home runs, 4 runs driven in. Franmil Reyes and Mike Freeman with 2 hit games as well. And the good pitching throughout the ball game for the Tribe as they will head home in first place now in the American League Central Division. Off day on Thursday for the Indians, and then they're back at it at home against the Giants. Interleague play at Progressive Field Friday night. We'll have the recap for you on the Sim Game recap afterwards.
We'll continue to periodically check in with the Indians during the simulated season as long as it takes for baseball to get back for real. Well, that'll do it for us on this edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Want to remind you, Les Levine will be back in the chair Monday from 6 to 7, live right here on cleveland.com, and we will see you again next Friday. Until then, stay safe and have a great weekend. Good night, everyone.